Congressman Madeleine Dean of Pennsylvania. She's on the Judiciary Committee and the Financial Services Committee and has a lot of things to say about a lot of the other topics we wanted to talk about. But I do want to get you in on this, Congresswoman, because of this issue of health care. The president coming out saying the Republicans are going to be a party of health care. I know you're fairly new to Congress, but you've been around long enough to know that that is a hard pill to swallow.
I'm new to Congress, but I'm not new to of health care in America. And what we know is that under the ACA, millions, tens of millions of Americans now have coverage. We should be absolutely moving in the opposite direction, which is what Democrats want to do, to fortify the ACA and make sure that everyone, that it's a human right, a basic human right, that everyone has access to affordable health care. You know that in my own state of Pennsylvania, we had millions of folks without health care insurance. After the ACA, several million got insurance. And then when we expanded Medicaid, another million got health insurance, including coverage for mental health and substance abuse. But you know what, Ali? I think we've seen this act before. We are about 72 hours from the close of the Mueller investigation, and the president had claimed he wanted full transparency of the report. But instead of seeking full transparency of the report, we have a new shiny object.
Right.
And sadly, this administration seeking to tear down something instead of lift people up.
I think you may be right about that. Let's just listen to what the president just said about the Mueller investigation, and we can talk about that.
I don't think they're talking about impeachment. We have the greatest economy we've ever had. Our country is in incredible shape. They and others created a fraud on our country with this ridiculous witch hunt, where it was proven very strongly, no collusion, no obstruction, no nothing. We are doing so well. We've never probably had a time of prosperity like this. It's been great.
The people who launched the investigation into your campaign of treasonous attacks, how high up do you think it went?
I think it went very high up. I think what happened is a disgrace. I don't believe our country should allow this ever to happen again. This will never happen again. We cannot let it ever happen again. It went very high up, and it started fairly low, but with instructions from the high up. This should never happen to a president again. Can't allow that to take place. I don't want to say that, but I think you know the answer.
Congresswoman Dean, there's a lot in there, including the fact that the president says the Mueller report said that there was no obstruction of justice, when in fact the very specificity of that was that a conclusion wasn't drawn by the Attorney General. But never mind all that. It started, it was given instructions from the high up. It should never happen to a president. That, in fact, is fundamentally at odds with the reason you're in Congress, the Article 1 requirements of Congress, and that is oversight. And you are on the Judiciary Committee, and a lot of people are turning their eyes now to your committee to say what can be done about this.
Number one, you saw that our chairman, Jerry Nadler, put a letter out demanding that Attorney General Barr give us the entire report by April the 2nd. Following that, we will ask Mr. Barr to come before us under sworn testimony to tell us exactly what is he's kept from us or what he's providing us. Take a look at what happened here. The special counsel spent 22 months investigating any kind of coordination or conspiracy with the Russians. We do know that the Russians interfered with our 2016 election. We know they will do it again. And this administration is paying no attention to that and instead would like to whitewash and simply say no collusion, which is actually not what the report, we believe, says, and that there was no obstruction of justice. If for 22 months the thoughtful work of a special counsel said, I cannot exonerate the president of obstruction of justice, how is it that in 48 hours and a scant summary, this attorney general has made a legal conclusion there's no obstruction? It doesn't make any sense.
And I know that you've got to go, so I want to ask you one other question. The Trump administration's bump stock ban went into effect today. I know you have had involvement in sensible legislation to deal with guns. What's your reaction to this? And have you reached out, have you had conversations about other gun legislation?
Oh, well, I thank you for pointing that out, because one of the things that's so frustrating to me is whether it's try to tear down ACA or try to block the Mueller report, people need to know we're passing substantive legislation here. So, number one, let me congratulate the administration on the bump stock ban. I introduced that same legislation as a state representative in Pennsylvania, so I'm very happy for the federal ban. We need to put that into law. You know that we passed H.R. 8, which is the universal background check bill. The very next day, this is about 3 weeks ago now, the very next day we passed a bill to close the Charleston loophole. Take a look at the substantive things that this Judiciary Committee is doing in addition to our constitutional oversight. And we need to put pressure on the Senate to bring these bills up to save lives. Last year, 40,000 people died of gun violence in this country. Another 134,000 were wounded, caught in the crossfire. We have a constitutional obligation and a moral obligation to make a difference to save lives.
Congresswoman Dean, thank you for joining me. I know the last time we talked, we had very short time, so I appreciate you coming back as we discussed you would do. Congresswoman Madeline